against Aronian. Carlsen prefers the move 1 e4 and goes for a slow Spanish line, but I have no clue what he's cooked up for that one. Unfortunately, his coach Peter Heine Nielsen is playing himself in this event, so he can't join me to tell us Magnus's secrets during the games, so we're just going to have to guess. Both players cool, calm and collected. Levon had a terrible rapid event for his standards, but it looks like he's happy that the time control is now shorter and he's up there on the stage against his old friend Magnus Carlsen. Let's get started. Unfortunately, I don't have the authority to decide that, so we're going to have to wait, but it can only be, I would say, seconds till the games begin. There we go, handshake, and 1 d4 by Magnus Carlsen, and bishop f4. No more a3, but he sticks to this solid London system, which we've seen him play both in the rapid and in the blitz against Laurent Fressinet. 2 French opponents for Carlsen already. Levon, let's see what system he employs. We've seen Timur Rajabov use a system with knight fd7 followed by e5 in the classical. We've seen the system with b6 employed by Fressinet, and Aronian goes his own way, goes knight to c6, bishop h2, and now knight to d7. Same plan to get in e5 and support that pawn as much as possible. Carlsen played knight c3 against Rajabov in a similar position. Here he plays a4, which is way too deep for me, probably trying to gain some space on the queen side. a4, e5, maybe just wants to go a5. Yeah, there he goes. And typically you want to stop that pawn before it reaches a6, so I would expect Levon to play a6 himself. But he takes on d4 first, and after he takes d4, I'm not sure why he would take on d4 so quickly and clarify the situation in the center. Now he goes a6, but I'm surprised he went ed so quickly. It's always good to keep the option open, to go e4 or to leave that pawn on e5. So after this ed exchange, I slightly prefer White's position, but of course nothing dramatic has happened yet, and Aronian is showing his biceps there, trying to intimidate the world champion, but I'm not sure that's going to work. He's played rook to e8 and h6, while Carlsen put his knight on c3 when rook e1. Both sides are completing development, and h6 is probably played to control the g5 square, but I'm not sure how much of a priority that was. Carlsen keeps grabbing more space. He already grabbed some on the queen side with a4, a5. Now he goes d5, knight e7, bishop f1. White is slightly better. He just controls more ground, which is a good thing to do in chess. Black also struggles a bit with developing his queen side. Bishop f5 would run into knight to d4, so probably you have to play a passive move like bishop to d7, but it's not overly pleasant. Aronian goes knight f5 instead, allowing the exchange of rooks. And Carlsen will probably play something like queen d2, intending to occupy the open e-file. There he goes, queen d2, bishop d7. Even though I've, not been praising Levon's play, his position is still very solid. He's going to go queen f8, intending to exchange rooks on the e-file with rook to e8, and it's not easy at all for White to gain anything tangible here. He could contemplate g4, trying to push that knight away, but it does come at a price. He's going to have to weaken his king. I'm not sure. I think that's what he's thinking about, but what do I know? I think that's what he's thinking. Is always very dangerous territory. He is taking a little time out here to weigh his options. Aronian looks very comfortable. At least now he has a clear plan. He's going to follow up with rook e8 and exchange all the rooks along the open e-file, unless Carlsen wants to play some super grandmaster move like rook b1, saying, I'm not worried about you having the e-file. I will keep these rooks on the board. And yeah, there he goes. Rook to b1, very deep stuff. I still think White should be a tad better, but now Black has all his pieces in the game, could go knight to e4 and go for some more exchanges, or he could play a move like queen e7 maybe. I'm not sure about that one. Knight e4 looks like the most obvious choice, just liberating his position further. Another idea is h5 followed by bishop h6, but that means you weaken the g5 square. I'm not sure he wants to do that. And I can't think of any other moves, so I hope Levon helps me out here by making one of them. But he seems to be taking his time. Both players, very similar situation on the clock, 136 versus 136 now. And white slightly better, but the game is just starting. Come on, Levon, this is Blitz. You shouldn't think for too long. Big time out here by the Armenian, and he just goes bishop back to c8, preparing for b5. He wants to cover his b7 pawn. Maybe wants to maneuver with knight to d7, bring that knight to c5, even though now c7 is under attack. And the obvious move, to my mind, is knight to e4, attacking the white queen and gaining some space. Let's see what he comes up with. Yeah, knight e4 looks like a normal move. Could also consider queen to e7, just defending the c7 pawn and then determining the position of the knight later. Anything wrong with queen e7? Not really. Oh, he goes knight d5. Wow, queen d5, c6. Little simplifying combination, but I'm not sure if I like it, because now he's left with a weakness on b7 and a weakness on d6. So I think he has worsened his position by doing that. And maybe that's the Magnus Carlsen factor, that he was so scared of that knight he wanted to eliminate it, but he has to pay the price that he's now slightly worse again, because his pawns on d6 and b7 are weaker than the white pawns on c2 and a5. Still nothing drastic, but this is a typical Carlsen grinding position. Magnus Carlsen is going to be happy here. He's also ahead on the clock with 120 versus 0.33. Yeah, it looks like, I think knight takes d5 was maybe a reflex when he saw that trick with c6, but I really believe Aronian has not done himself a favor by doing that. Now this bishop on h2 finds excellent work targeting the pawn on d6, while earlier wasn't really doing much with the black pawn on c7. And this position is just unpleasant to defend. Carlsen can even go for an endgame here with queen b6, which looks like a pretty good idea. Or he could now go for this space grab with g4, pushing the knight back now that this situation has been simplified a bit. Weakening your king should no longer be such a big deal. Taking his time here as well. My score of guessing Carlsen moves has gone down, so I hope he makes one of these two. Could also yell out like 5 more moves just to increase my chances. Bishop takes f5, c4, c3, but no, that's not gonna help you guys out. I think queen b6 is a very interesting option here. If queen takes b6, rook takes b6, keeping tabs on the black weaknesses, threatening g4. He goes g4. At least that's my other move, forcing knight to e7, and now queen to b6, trying to target that pawn on d6. I think black has to take. Yeah, he does take. Rook takes, and bishop to c3, counterattack against the a5 pawn. What's going on? Rook takes d6, bishop a5. Aronian has managed to exchange a pair of pawns, which is good news for him. He's still under a bit of pressure because white is slightly more active, but in general this is progress for black, and now the position should be pretty close to equal. Bishop to b4, exchanging, or planning to exchange more material. Yeah, this is equal. Now the weaknesses on c2 and b7 balance each other out. I would expect this game to end peacefully. Knight d4, he can take that and go bishop f6, which he does. Carlsen wants to continue playing, but now h4, fixing the weakness on h3, and there is really not a lot that white can work with here. Bishop d8, f6. Yeah, the position is just equal. What's Carlsen up to? Does he want to go f4? I'm surprised Aronian went b6, but okay. Doesn't change the situation. Now he has to use his dark squared bishop instead of his light squared bishop to guard his pawn. But he can comfortably control everything. And yeah, the players agree to a draw. Well played game by both. On board one, a draw, which means Magnus Carlsen stays half a point ahead of Levon Aronian. And his rival Tigran Petrosyan did lose his game to MVL. So that means Carlsen is in the lead together with MVL and probably with someone else who won on a lower board.